that we live in the greatest period of innovation for human expression in history. But before I get into this in a little bit more detail, there's a book I want to mention called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. This was a book, it's a very old book, I think it was written in the early 1900s by this guy Thomas Kuhn. And he explains something called a paradigm shift. Does anyone here know what a paradigm shift is? You're nodding. What's a paradigm shift? You've heard of it. Okay, very good. Does anyone know what a paradigm shift is?
Warp in time?
My wife knows what it is. Very good. No, a paradigm shift is basically something that comes along and people change their perspective, but on a mass scale. And what this person, Thomas Kuhn, was saying about technology and science at the time is that I think a new kind of physics had come along, right? And there was a whole group of scientists who were denying the validity of this new kind of physics. But then there were a younger generation of people that accepted it. And this type of physics is the type of physics that we have now. But the people who were born prior to this type of physics existing had a very difficult time accepting that this type of physics was truly descriptive and accurate. And I think that social media is kind of like that. For people who were born prior to social media being a big part of our lives, they might think, well, what's the importance of this? But for people who have grown up, like my son, social media is going to be something very pervasive for him, and he's going to understand that it has a big impact without it, without anyone trying to have to explain, no, this is really important. So I think that Twitter itself and social media in general is kind of like that. We have a generation who fully embraces it, who's not afraid of it, who's not concerned about it, and kind of recognizes that whether it's the Arab Spring or whether it's Islamophobia, it plays a role. And then there's other people who are not on it, who are afraid of it, who are concerned about it, who think that it must be being used for some kind of bad and nefarious purpose, who can't really even understand how something like social media can play a role in revolutions and social change. So anyhow, back to Clay Shirky. So he's saying that we are living in a time of great innovation in terms of self-expression. So let's look, and here's his book, Here Comes Everybody, I recommend it. This is the printing press, right? Obviously a very impactful technology in terms of human communication, but if you think about it, it's sort of a one-to-many kind of technology. A book is printed, and that same book goes out to everybody. There's no conversation in regards to the printing press. Here's a telegraph, a bi-directional technology for two people to communicate with each other. So it's sort of a one-to-one communication technology that is very inefficient. The telephone, that used to look like this. Again, sort of a one-to-one technology. Video, another one-to-many technology. Television, another one-to-many. People try to talk back to the TV. It's not that effective. They can't hear you on the other side. But when you take Twitter, you have a many-to-many technology that really hadn't existed in the past, where one person can really be a part of a bigger conversation with anybody. You might be going back and forth with Obama or whoever is participating in a particular social media discussion. And it's just never been this possible and this easy for anyone to broadcast their perspective on whatever it is that they have to say, as unimportant as it might be, or as critical to society as it may be. We're also living in a time where we're described as a group of people called the former audience. And this guy, Dan Gilmore, in a book called We the Media, said, once mere consumers of news, the audience is learning how to get a better, timelier report. And in my life, I have a pretty relevant anecdote. Now, the first time when Obama was running for election, my whole family was gathered around the TV. And we would kind of switch between like MSNBC and CNN, maybe a little bit of Fox here and there, and see, which states are blue, which states are red, what are people saying, what's going on. But we were essentially like glued to the TV. Now, in this more recent one, I had Facebook. Everyone had a laptop or an iPad or something like that, and they were logged into their own Facebook, seeing what their friends have to say, seeing what Haroon has to say, seeing what Khaled has to say, seeing what people that we respect, people that have a similar viewpoint to us, And we were participating in it. Now, I'm not somebody on social media that has like 5,000 followers, or if I post something up, I don't get like 100 likes. But at this time during the election, I put up my perspective on a few things, and I probably got more comments and more likes than I typically would get on social media. And perhaps I was influencing the opinions of some of my peers, and definitely some of the people that I look up to and know or aspire to know were shaping my opinion, much more than Wolf Blitzer or people on CNN. So in this sense, yeah, the TV was still there, but it was in the background, and people in this community could have been posting up something and said, yeah, that's right, that's what's really happening, and that would shape my understanding of this issue. Have you guys experienced anything like this? Who watched the election? Okay, so was it a TV experience? Was there a social media part of it?
Everything.
So he's sort of a CNN, MSNBC experience. Was anyone tweeting about it or following on Facebook? In the back there?
Yeah, definitely.
Good. So if you think about social media, or you think about any kind of social change, a lot of it has to do with influence, right? Now, influence is how people change other people's minds. And probably the most powerful mechanism of influence is storytelling, right? Now let's suppose myself and someone else here, we disagree on something, right? And we get into like a heated argument about it. Most likely, no matter how persuasive my argument is, the more I argue for it, the firmer he's going to feel about his perspective, right? And you see this all the time. It's called a convincer-resistor response. If I try to convince you, you will naturally try to resist me. But if I tell you a story, right? Suppose you've never met a Muslim, but I tell you a story, an authentic story about a Muslim person, the difficulty she had in finding a job, and the hardship she went to, and she finally got the job, and what she experienced, putting on a hijab or not. Even if you've never met a Muslim, and you tend to disagree with the politics of Muslims, or whatever it may be, for a little while you may put yourself in that person's shoes, and maybe you won't change your perspective, but you're not necessarily going to resist it. It's kind of humanizing, right? And you would think that in this culture, in this society, that everybody would view other people as fellow human beings, right? As having the same feelings, the same emotions. But what we see in terms of Muslims and how we're portrayed in the media and how people think of us, we're thought of in a very limited capacity. Some people think that Muslims sort of wake up in the morning, get ready to fight violent jihad, and go to sleep. And that's like the entire Muslim story, right? So just by going on Twitter and sharing some aspect of your life, other people are seeing this and saying, there's something to these Muslims. There's a little more to their story. So here are some statistics that most of which I'm not very happy about. One we have, it says 63% of Americans say that they don't know anything, or they just a little bit about Islam. And that's from the Washington Post. 45% of Americans feel that Islam is a religion that encourages violence. That's from USA Today. 53% of Americans have an unfavorable impression of Islam, the Pew Forum. 39% would not want to have a Muslim as their neighbor. Only 14% of Americans say they know a lot about the religious beliefs and practices of Muslims, and 57% say they know only a little. But here's one stat that is really hopeful for Muslims, and that is that a majority of Americans who personally know a Muslim have a favorable view of Islam. And in that sense, I feel like here we have scientific proof that you as a Muslim and how you interact in society and how people come to know you is probably the most influential thing that you can do to change the opinion of Islam and Muslims. Now, this is about social media, and there have recently been a number of social media campaigns that pertain to Islam and Muslims. Is anyone here familiar with any of these social media campaigns before we get into it? What do you got?
Yeah, the MyJihad campaign.
MyJihad, very good. Have you guys heard of this, MyJihad?
Mentioned it yesterday.
Very good, very good. Okay. So, the first of these campaigns that I want to look at is called Injustice Cannot Defeat Injustice. Has anyone here heard of this one? This one's a little bit older, and it kind of predates social media. Now, when I describe this one, I'm kind of describing this as sort of like the what not to do campaign, but I don't want it to be taken in a bad way. All the people who participated in this really had a great intention, and they worked hard, and they probably spent a lot of money on it. But when we see how it compares to some more recent ones that embrace social media, you can see how the effect of it was pretty marginal. So basically, in Injustice Cannot Defeat Injustice, you have all of the top scholars of Islam, especially in America, making this video about how Islam is about justice, and it's not about terrorism, and it's about peace, and all this kind of stuff. And we even had this guy. You guys recognize him? Hamza Yusuf? So he has a big, he's like the sort of like the big part of this video. Right at the end of it, he gives his perspective. And the thing about it is that, do you see this number down here? 34,441? I mean, this campaign went on for quite a while. They spent a lot of money promoting it, and it has gotten less views than my cousin who puts up videos about like how to do makeup. So, I mean, without a doubt, it was like an ineffective campaign. But I think that it's ineffective in so many different ways. So the first thing about it is we have the Muslim scholars, right? Well, Muslim scholars mean a lot to us, but to the people who we're trying to influence their opinions, they have, like, Hamza Yusuf means nothing to a non-Muslim person. He has no particular greater significance to them than any of us do. It was also like top-down. So these organizations got together, they made this script, they reached out to these people, they shot it, they put it out there. It wasn't something that the community participated in themselves or really embraced in a big way. And then maybe a more subtle point is that it kind of embraced a framework that we need to reject, right? Which is this framework of Muslims, that there's two kinds of Muslims. There's bad Muslims, also known as terrorists, and they're good Muslims, Muslims who come out against terrorism. But there's no other kind of Muslim. Muslims don't have an opinion on anything, on any important topic, like hydrofracking and genetically modified foods and stem cells. There's no Muslim opinion on that is newsworthy. I mean, that's what we're kind of seeing. That you're either brought out to be a terrorist, or you're brought out to say that you're not against, that you're not for it. But we need to talk about other things. And this is Charles Darwin. I remember a few years ago, it was the 200th anniversary of, I think, of his death, or his birth, one or the other. And on NPR, they had a group of people from different religions talking about evolution, right? Is evolution real? Is it not real? Is it important? All this stuff about evolution. And they had a Christian, they had a Jewish guy, they had a Hindu, they had a Buddhist, but they didn't have a Muslim, right? And this is NPR, right? This isn't like Fox News, who we would sort of expect to exclude Muslims or depict Muslims a certain way. This was like the good guys, right? Even the good guys didn't really think it was important to include what we have to say. And I think it's kind of shocking in a way, because Christianity, I don't know this for a fact, but I kind of have a sense that Christianity almost has like a science problem, right? But Islam doesn't. If you read the Quran, it encourages you to learn more about the world, and that the more you learn about the world, the greater and the deeper your appreciation for God is going to become. So we were excluded from that. But just like we're excluded from just about every topic, about hip-hop, about music, about whatever it is, we have a unique perspective, and some of these other campaigns are much better at getting that point across. So, the Savages Subway ad. Has anyone seen this Subway ad?
Yeah.
Right? So this, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is a Subway ad that basically depicted Arabs in particular, but Muslims in general, as being savages. And a group who calls himself the American Defense Initiative put up this Subway ad that says, in a war between the civilized man and the savage, support the civilized man, support Israel, defeat jihad. And this cost a lot of money. This was put in cities all across the country, and everywhere that it went in CARE, we were pretty much working to contact those agencies to tell them that they shouldn't do it. In some cases, we were successful in getting it not put out there, but essentially in this country we do have freedom of speech, and we're also living in an environment where if this was anti-black or anti-Jewish, there'd be a lot of outrage about it. But to have something that's anti-Muslim doesn't really get people that upset. So I mean, it was here in New York, it was in a lot of different places. But it's sort of like the same old Islamophobes with the same old message. And the only thing unique about this, I think, is that by including Israel in the bottom part of this, they've kind of made this campaign almost like untouchable by politicians, because politicians didn't want to be seen as being anti-Israel, despite the fact that this ad is, overtly hateful and mean-spirited. So, in a response to this campaign, you had the first, I mean, maybe it's not the actual first, but it was the first one that really seemed to take off, which was a Twitter and Facebook campaign called My Subway Ad. And in My Subway Ad, you had all kinds of different people coming up with what their ad would be. So someone said, imagine being an American in a country with billboards on public transportation calling you a savage. Hashtag My Subway Ad. In New York City, we speak 140 languages, and hate isn't one of them. My Subway Ad, anti-hate. Hatred won't ever work as a solution, but it will always be part of the problem. Don't fight hate with hate. My Subway Ad, anti-hate. If we meet the forces of hate with the power of love, we must meet the forces of hate with the power of love. Martin Luther King Jr., My Subway Ad, anti-hate. Islamophobia dressed up as freedom of speech is still Islamophobia. My Subway Ad, anti-hate, carbon copy, MTA, Insider. Now let's dissect this one for a moment, right? So here we have someone called I'm the Q. And I don't recognize this person. Maybe this person is famous or semi-famous, or maybe this person is just a Muslim who decided to participate in this campaign, which is really the essence of a social media campaign, because it's supposed to be taken up by everybody. You don't have to have a special status or a special position to participate in it. Number two, we have these hashtags. And probably most of you are familiar with what a hashtag is, but just in case you aren't, a hashtag is a way to label a Twitter message, to basically group it together. And if enough people use a particular hashtag, this hashtag does what's called trending, whereas Twitter will actually put this on a list of popular hashtags. My Subway Ad was coordinated by a number of people to all post these things at the same time, and it trended. So when it trended, people that would normally not be exposed to or even aware of the issues that Muslims are facing may have clicked it and said, what's this? This isn't about Justin Bieber. This is something different. And they clicked it, and they could read it, and they can see Muslims in a whole new light, that as much as we may beg and plead with the media to write a new story about us, here we're telling our own story. Well, I guess the other part is this thing at the end, at MTA Insider. So in New York City, the Metropolitan Transit Authority is the agency that agreed to put up this ad. So in this case, this person was not only grouping this post under My Subway Ad and the broader anti-hate, which is a tag that deals with any kind of hate, not just hatred against Muslims, but they also brought it to the attention of the MTA's own Twitter account to make sure that they were aware of public opinion and dissent about this campaign. How about Muslim Rage? Are you guys familiar with this one? So right on the heels of My Subway Ad, Newsweek saw these two really handsome guys and decided to put them on their cover. And they also had this article by Ayan Hirsi Ali, who's sort of another kind of career Islamophobe going around making lots of money, hating Muslims. So the thing about this one here is that the response to it could have been really negative, right? I'm sure everyone's heard stories about, when that guy in Florida was burning Quran. In Afghanistan, people were burning things or doing things that are dangerous and irresponsible. But when Muslim Rage came around, it seems like the Muslim community was already kind of like on a little bit of a high from the My Subway ad. Because My Subway ad got a lot of media coverage. Interfaith groups made their own real subway ads that went up in New York City. So right away, Muslims just sort of jumped on this thing with the Muslim Rage hashtag. I mean, Muslim Rage was just perfect to be a social media campaign. So you have, lost your kid jihad at the airport, can't yell for him, Muslim Rage. Orders pancakes at IHOP, came with a side of bacon, Muslim Rage. Wrestling is fake, Muslim Rage. 98% of the food at my campus is haram. The 2% that is halal is overpriced, Muslim Rage. So, I mean, Muslim Rage is kind of good because it incorporates humor, right? And when we're addressing this issue of Muslims not being humanized in the media, for anyone who saw this would be like, hey, you know, these Muslims are dangerous, but they're also pretty funny. And so I think it was really good in terms of like using storytelling to influence people's opinion. You can't read these things and really still hold this monolithic, limited, false opinion of Muslims. So after the success of that, Ahmed Rehab, who was a CARE executive director in Chicago, came up with MyJihad. And I was fortunate enough to get a chance to talk to him about this, what he was thinking about it. And basically, he really liked My Subway ad and Muslim Rage, but the issue with those, in a sense, is that they're not durable, right? 6 months from now, no one's going to really know what My Subway ad is about. And Muslim Rage is going to be like a little note in history with Newsweek going out of business, which is sort of another part I forgot to mention. So shortly after Newsweek did Muslim Rage, they announced that they're no longer going to be publishing their magazine. And that some journalists had this opinion that, you know, in the months leading up to the end of this publication, they made their covers more and more sensationalistic in an effort to sell more magazines, but they died anyway. So MyJihad is intended to be a durable, not just a social media campaign, but I mean this event itself kind of proves that MyJihad has some kind of lasting utility and an interesting thing to consider. So some of them that you may have seen, so here we have this filmmaker saying MyJihad is to use media as a tool for positive change. MyJihad is to break stereotypes with humor. What's yours? MyJihad is thinking outside the box. And this, it's kind of hard to read, but I'll try to explain it. So basically, Ahmed Rehab posts up, MyJihad is to get people to join the MyJihad educational campaign as a positive response to hate and ignorance. What's yours? And then he gets a response on Twitter from Robert Spencer. Has anyone heard of this guy, Robert Spencer? Yeah. Robert Spencer is one of the leading, like, anti-Muslim people who's in the media, he's in colleges, he's writing books. He's made so much money demonizing all of us people that, you know, he's I don't know, he's just a crook, this guy. Anyway, so he kind of jumps in, and he runs a website called Jihad Watch, by the way. So he says, Ahmed Rehab, mine is countering your hate and defamation with truth about Islam and Hamas-linked care. And then Ahmed says, mine is, quoting him, that's fine. So now that you admit to doing jihad, are you going to watch yourself on Jihad Watch? And I mean, it's kind of silly, but you know, this guy is making a lot of money, you know, depicting us a certain way. And if you really think about it, MyJihad and the whole campaign, and just Muslims identifying themselves and reclaiming their words, is going to impact Robert Spencer in a really negative way, because he's not going to be invited to so many speaking engagements. As soon as word gets out that Muslims are just like everybody else, and unique, and important, and insightful, and valuable, there won't be a career for people to just professionally hate Muslims as a job. Another thing about the MyJihad campaign that's kind of subtle, but it's really important about it, is that whatever side of the sort of extremist spectrum you're on, this campaign is a problem for you. So if you're an extremist Islamophobe, here you have Muslims taking their term back and injecting it with the real meaning that it actually has, and not being afraid to use this term in their communities and in public life. But if you were an extremist Muslim, and you have Muslims actually regarding this word for what it is, then even you would lose the power that you might have in terms of influencing people towards extremism. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's a lot of time.
Oh, sure.
Call and stuff.
I mean, we're like right on the tail end. Do you want to just wrap it up?
Yeah, just give me that place to call.
Oh, okay.
Well, we can go right down there. Sure. Thank you.